So let's jump right in and have some fun. So up first, I've got an image from Wallace, and this is a RAW file that's submitted. And the thing that I really love about RAW files, we don't have any of the processing that's done on it, so we can look at how to actually process these RAW files. Because when we have all the information that's present in the RAW file, we can pull the extremes. There's so much information that's hidden and embedded in these files, so we can really work it and pull stuff out. So I'm going to show you how I would go about processing some of these files. So up first, we're going to look at this image from Wallace. So when I'm just taking that initial viewpoint on it, I notice that we've got a lot of really bright highlights, some really deep shadows that are coming through. So we're going to want to balance out tonality on this. And I'm going to show you my favorite ways for doing that. So whenever I'm looking at an image, first thing I want to do is try to get as much of that neutral profile as possible. That way when I'm doing all the retouching and the things in Photoshop, I'm not working on the very extremes. Instead, I've got that middle ground that's already a good starting point, and we just need to do a little cleanup. So for Wallace's image, we're just going to be looking at how we do that initial processing that's coming through. And first up, I'm going to be looking at the profile settings. I'm in Adobe Camera Raw. This could be the same thing as Lightroom or Capture One if you're in there. But under the profile settings, this is a new feature that Adobe has added in this last couple of updates. So normally we're going to see our color profile, the Adobe color. That's going to be kind of our standard. But because we're working with a RAW file, we can now utilize a new tool that they have called Adaptive Color. So kind of keep this in mind. This is what our standard processing is. If we put it into like portrait processing, it maybe lowers that contrast a little bit, but the adaptive color, it's got to do a little bit of thinking because it's using AI to actually analyze the image. And look what it just did. It brought down all those highlights. It lightened up all those shadows that are coming up there. And that's just this adaptive color. Notice that none of the sliders for like our exposure value have been changed at all. We just popped it into that one profile setting. And now we've got a slider where we can increase the effect or pull it back to our original. I'm going to go ahead and bump this one up to about 150%, really pulling in those details. So we've got such a lighter, brighter image, so much nicer than just popping into our normal portrait color mode, because it's actually analyzing this image and applying a specific algorithm to it that's going to help us maximize the effectiveness of this specific single image. So that is great. Now I can start in with the tweaking. And I've got a lot of hot spots that we need to kind of tone down so we can keep the focus on our central subject. So I'm just going to come over here to the highlights tab and just pull that one way down. I'm going to go pretty extreme and bring that down to -100. So we've got a lot of the highlights pulled down, and we can actually do that with the whites a bit too. So we can pull those ones down just a little bit. So now we don't have anything that's super blinding white. Look at that. Our whites are now pulled down and manageable. Most of this information's in our deeper midtones and our shadows. So we can lighten up some of those shadows because we got some pretty heavy areas. by bumping up that shadow slider a little bit. And I like the black slider as a way of just overall lightening the image without making it feel too processed. So we've got a really nice neutral look to it, but some of the colors are looking a little bit fake. Particularly those greens, they just have almost a radioactive aspect to it because we processed it so much. So it still has all that saturation information, even though we've massively lightened the tonal values on them. So we need to address that. So I'm going to come down here in this all the way down to the color mixer tab. And in the color mixer tab, I'm looking at what my primary colors in the scene are. I've got some beautiful warm tones. I've got some nice vibrant blues and greens. Now greens establish a little bit of the setting, but they're not where my subject is. So the greens are going to want to be what I handle first. So I'm going to do is just come to the saturation, find our greens, and I can just pull those down. Just pulling down that saturation level on them. In this case, about -30 or so. Looks pretty good. Now the background feels a little bit more natural. Our subjects still have that full vibrance, so we've got that color contrast that's popping with it. So this one's starting to work for me. We might tweak the blues just a little bit, maybe pulling those down just a hair, just so that our warm colors are the most dominant color in this scheme, and we've got blues, which are complementary to it, on the opposite side. So it helps us kind of pull those things together. In terms of overall finishing for it, we might do something like warm up the scene just a little bit to really embrace those warm tones that are coming through. And maybe now that we have a nice ratio of all these colors, just pull down this overall saturation just a little bit. So, a lot of little tweaks that went into this, but when we're looking at it, we now have a clear focus on our subjects. We've got that established scene. Everything feels nice and natural to it, and it feels like we're actually there. We're standing there. So, this is how I would go about doing the raw processing on it. And this is kind of bringing up a cool theme that we're going to explore a lot today is our dominant colors and how we can play with colors to really draw focus into it. How are we feeling on Wallace's image with the using the new adaptive color profile that's on it? Kind of cool way to process that. Do we like the moodier high contrast setting or the little bit more desaturated muted scheme that's going on there? How are we feeling about that?
Looks
The
great.
effect. Yeah.
Wallace approves. I'll take it. There we go. There we go. He's not going to beat me up later. We're good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chris, one thing I was wondering about, and of course it's up to Wallace's choice. Excuse me, but my eye keeps going back to that van back there. And I'm just kind of wondering if maybe that should be taken out so that total focus could be on the 4 cute kids up front.
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. And it depends on what our final usage of the image is going to be. I'd 100% agree with you that the van's a distraction. The people are probably distractions too, because we do have a bit of a merger. And we've already got a really high contrast scene with kind of the splotchy light that's coming through. The light kind of adds some realism for me, so I'm a little bit more okay with that. But our background elements are distracting, which means that if we're doing something like competition, we probably want to take those out, unless you're keeping it in like a reportage type category where we can't actually remove elements from it. So it depends on what your goal is for the final image. If this is documenting what your trip is and we're trying to get a cohesive feeling from what your travels were, I'd probably take all of those elements out. If you're doing something that's going to be reportage or we're using this for community awareness, then I'd leave it because it feels a little bit more natural and very real. So depends on what our goals are with it.
Well, I was thinking about the background as well. The van and the it looks like some kids in the back, and that was it.